Hey, good morning, and welcome to a special edition of From the Command Post. We're live here from the Fire Rescue Training Academy. I'm Battalion Chief Mark Davis. This is going to be a special morning episode of From the Command Post, 3 hours long as advertised. We have two presenters here today with us, Battalion Chief Sam Villani and Battalion Chief Erik Couse, who are going to talk about communication-related stuff, not necessarily everything about the radio, but communications and the important parts of all of that happens not only in the command post, but also from company officers. So the program is geared towards command officers, but there is something there for everybody, whether you're the new firefighter who's riding the ambulance and has to communicate with folks via the radio or in person or use different devices, all the way up to being the second chief in the command car, all those kind of things. So we do intend on taking about a 10-minute break around the halfway point. So somewhere around that 9:15, 9:20 mark, we'll be breaking the first session, and then the second session is intended to start again at 9:30 hours. If for some reason, or not for some reason, if you have any questions, we're running the live chat on the Google, YouTube, as we have in the past, and just go ahead and type those things in. And then I'll make sure that I get that question to the presenters. So I think that's all I have for right now. We're ready to get rolling up, waiting on a technology item here. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Sam Villani, and he's going to get started with his presentation. Chief Villani.
Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Chief Ogren for coming in person. I was hoping to see some more folks, but I know it's summer. I understand the tracker's pretty busy, and half of you are probably on vacation. If you're tuning in on vacation, thanks for doing that. My presentation, there's some discussion points, so please get in the chat. If you don't have the chat window up, get in the chat and be prepared to give me some input, because I don't want to be up here just talking for an hour and a half, and certainly some of the things in my presentation they require some interaction, some talking points and that kind of stuff. So again, thank you for tuning in. Chief Scott just texted me about the link. They're getting that fixed. So if you tuned in, you're here. So that's not a big deal. But we might get a few more people tuning in. Yeah, it's the wrong link. Wait a minute, I'm watching you right now.
Yeah. They go to, I apologize, quick links, PSTA, and then command competencies. There's a job form that you can log in for COPDI.
Okay, so quick links,
PSTA,
command competencies is in there. So, but again, if you're watching me right now, you figured it out, which is great. So today we're going to, my presentation, we're going to talk about mastering fireground communications as a new chief. This is something I put together for one of the other outfits I worked for on the side when I became a new chief, because I realized as much as I thought I knew about communications, I had a lot more to learn. And the beauty of the fire service is we're a learning organization. And the nice thing about that is we're never stop learning. Every day we learn something new, that kind of thing. And you know, we say it, but that actually does happen, as you very well know. We never know what we're going to run out the door. We plan for the best, we get there, things change, our environments are very dynamic, and communications plays into that quite a bit. That's me. I think everybody, probably everybody tuning in today knows who I am. Those bottom two things surprise a lot of people. Mike Ryman, he reminds me all the time, the hugger and the family man. Well, the hugger thing I think he knew, but the family man thing shocks him all the time. I'm on the phone with him the other day, and the BJ's wholesale with one kid melting down, one kid getting into the boxes, and he was having a good laugh about it. But that's who I am. I am the Deputy Technology Section Chief for our department under Assistant Chief Technology Chief Mike Baltrossi. That's who I am. And I'm the Deputy Technology Battalion 4 Chief on C shift as well, so I have two jobs in this organization. I love this place. I moved here in '92 as a college live-in, and from Ocean City, Maryland. I moved from the beach to here, and this place is held on to me, and I appreciate every day being here. So being able to do this extra stuff is it's a big deal. I'm also on the SIG involved in tech ops, and I know a lot of you have had interactions with both of those entities. Just remember, in Montgomery County, we start out with tech ops intervening for any communications problems, and we build out from there. The National Capital Region Communications Interoperability Group, or the NCR-CIG, or the SIG, or the radio cache, that's a regional asset. We do deploy in county, but we deploy in county at the behest of the on-duty COML, which is typically Captain Matt Houck, myself, Chief Baltrosky, or a few other folks that are stakeholders in the tech ops world. So, as you know, I think everybody has this at some point in their life. You get to a point where you think you want to promote that kind of thing. I can tell you, up until I took the test, I don't know. Well, up until I decided I wanted to take the test, I didn't want to be a chief. I wanted to stay in the company. I loved being a company officer. I had great shifts. I had some of the best times of my life as a lieutenant, and then as a captain, the short time I was a captain at 1 Engine. And we took the leap, and it's been very meaningful. And like Chief Davis said when I told him I was taking the test, and he sat me down at 1 Engine one night, and Chief Couse had a similar conversation with him when he did the same thing. It's like quitting one job and starting the other, and it really is. And you think about it in terms of everything, including communications. Think about communications. As a firefighter, it's different. As a company officer, it's different. And certainly as a battalion chief in charge of a battalion and running an incident, communications really takes a huge precedence, and it's complicated. It's complicated, and the only way we get better at that is training. And that's what I really want to hit home today is I'm going to talk about Chief first a little bit. He's my work buddy. You know, everybody has a work buddy on their shift. Rob and I talk probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a day, text back and forth. But Rob and I also meet from time to time and we train together. We go through command sequences, we go through Mayday sequences, and it's meaningful work, it's meaningful training, and it's something we do on our own, but it's something that I think everybody can do. And I think there are folks out there that do that already, but if you don't, I'll talk about what I've done, what Rob and I have done, and what I've done with my battalion drills, and I implore you to bring that into your world because it's important, and it makes you better. It definitely makes you better. So I was the Belpre Road. I'm sure most people know those fires. I had 2 fires in the same building. This is my kind of like my icebreaker. But so yeah, that's the second one from a Snapchat. And I remember, you know, seeing Chief Goldstein after the second fire, and he kind of had a smile on his face, and he said, if this building burns a 3rd time, we're going to have a talk. And both of those fires had, you know, as a newer chief, you hope everything goes right, and everything went right with both of those fires, including the communication stuff. And I know Chief Couse is going to talk to you at the second part of this presentation about push-pull comms and that kind of stuff. And I had like perfect push-pull comms from the company officers. And I can tell you as a battalion chief, having squared away company officers who are passionate about this job and passionate about communications and who practice this stuff, and it's very obvious when they do, it makes our job so much easier. And again, it's like anything else. I saw my bosses do training. I saw them getting involved in things as I was coming up, and I followed suit. And I think when you get to the battalion chief level, there's so much we have to do in a day. Your day, you know, they say your day is what you make it. Your day isn't what you make it. Your day is what your day is, and it's usually predicated on the happenings in the county, personnel issues, MC time, you know, and then you have you do have a block of time where, quote unquote, you can do what you want to do. But what you're really doing is you're developing your personnel. You're planning for your next battalion training. You're talking to your people, that kind of thing. And you got to keep communications in that loop, because we talk about pulling lines. Have your expectations with your folks. Hey, you know, I expect we're following the IRP. We're stretching hose. We're throwing ladders. You've got your PPE on. We're on the highway. We're operating with traffic vests and all that stuff. When's the last time you talked to your folks about effective communications, about being concise on the radio, about your IOSR, your SIR, your LCAN, your 360 report, When's the last time you practiced with portable radios with your folks? When have you ever reached out to communications and got them involved? And we're going to talk about that in this presentation. That's all stuff you can do. And I didn't realize it until I became promoted that, hey, this freedom they're giving me, it's not freedom to do whatever I want. It's freedom to 100% dedicate myself to this battalion and this shift and to this organization to better it, better myself, better my people, so that when we go out the door, we're that much better. Today we'll talk about the number one on the problem on the fire ground. Can you guess what that is? Communications. Guarantee you. And I'll show you. I have some examples. How do we prepare? We'll talk about that a little bit. How do we prepare how do we prepare to begin to master? The title of my presentation, Mastering Fireground Communications, it's a little bit of a misnomer, but it's something you got to strive for. You might not ever be the best, but you want to strive every day to try to be the best, right? We'll talk about Mayday comms, very, very relevant. I know most of you or all of you know yesterday morning they had a Mayday and a tragic outcome down in Southern Maryland. And we want to take a moment actually now to think of those folks, what they're going through. And some folks that we know were involved in that incident. Some of you may have the member involved, and just keep them in your thoughts. And remember, every day we go out the door, we just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. We go out with the best of intentions, as prepared as we can be, and given everything, given our everything and our 100% to the incident, and you just don't know what's going to happen. Keep them in your thoughts, keep them in your prayers if you're a prayerful person, and we'll learn from it. It's tough. That's all I got. We'll talk about, again, communication drills. I'll tell you, I got this from Fairfax. Fairfax does Mayday training with their communications center. So I always think about, I did 2 years and 4 months at communications early in my career, RC16. What's up, RC16? We all took the test. Everybody in RC16 had to take the communications test. So we took it. Those of us that passed it went up to communications. I did 2 years and 4 months there, and that's where my communications career started. But Fairfax uses their communications center in their drills. Think about up there, when's the last time, other than maybe in their training environment, that they've been able to hit the Mayday tone, the evacuation tones, going through a Mayday sequence with you. Even going through the acknowledgments for greater alarms or extra resources or that kind of stuff, where they've been, we work with them on every incident, right? So every incident we run where there's command established, we're talking to them, we're relying on them for a lot. And I think we've forgotten the training piece of that. And I think we owe it to them to get them involved. And guess what? They want to be involved. Monday through Friday during the day, they're at full staffing. They always have people in training. You hear them on the radio. I will tell you, be patient with them. They've got some people up there training right now. And you hear people say, man, this and that. No, they're training. They're going to get better. That's the way we get better. And they're going to become great up there. And that's the best part of it. But we want to support them, and we certainly want to keep them. Think about tying them into your training. They'd love to do it. I've done it in Battalion 4, and it's worked out really well. So please put that in your notebook. Write it down. Get your OneNote up or whatever you use. Write it down and think about it. We'll talk about DVRS. Really, DVRS and some tech tips. All of that stuff's in there. So towards the end of the presentation, I'll give you some information that maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't. But it's all good refresher. It's all good stuff to remember as far as all the technology we have. Think about, I think all of us in this organization know you go 50 or 100 miles outside of here, maybe not even that far, and you realize how good we have it technology-wise here. We have the best CAD system. We have the best radio system. We have the best radios. People are pretty confident on them. You don't hear a lot of people being knocked off talk groups, being on the wrong talk groups, not being involved in that communications thing. And the reason I think we're so good at it is because we have the best stuff, and we're very fortunate to have that. I think about it every day. Look at all the technology they throw at us, and while it can, if you just look at it and you don't know about it, It can be overwhelming, but the truth is, we know about it, we train with it, and we use it, and there's always good outcomes from it. So the number one problem on the fire ground, I say that, read any NIOSH line of duty death report, read any internal report, and fire ground communications is in there. It might not be the top one, but it is always in there. I've not gone through every line of duty death report that NIOSH publishes, but I've been through every one I've looked at. Fire ground communications is always in there. Why? Why is it in there? It's not because we don't have the best technology or the best radios or the best radio system. It's not because we don't train. It's because when we're in extremis, when things are really bad, it's hard as human beings. We're not robots. It's hard as human beings to stay on top of it, and things happen. And again, I think because we have what we have here with our robust communication system and the amount of technology we have, I think it really helps us manage that kind of stuff, and maybe it helps prevent those maydays and those tragic outcomes. I'm a realist; it can happen to anybody, anytime, and yesterday morning is a prime example. But if we train with this stuff and we keep this stuff at the forefront, and again, it's not just stretching lines, throwing ladders, making sure everybody's in the right position, people are picking up hydrants and that kind of stuff. Think about that communications piece. Think about how vital it is. Our portable radios are the most it's the most used piece of equipment on our apparatus. Are our firefighters and our company officers doing service checks on them like they do with their SCBA? They should be. But anyway, fire ground communications is always in these line of duty deaths. There's always something that goes on. Sure, most people are familiar with the Mayday Project. If not, just Google it. Google the Mayday Project. Donald Abbott published a piece in Firehouse Magazine back in 2016. 40% of Maydays were on the wrong channel from this data that he collected. 60% had difficulty transmitting due to radio traffic. Those two lines there, that first and second line. Anybody in the chat or here, regionally, we've had 2 line of duty deaths involving those things. Anybody want to talk about it? The top one, Nate Flynn, knocked off the wrong channel. Okay, hits close to home. We had some of our folks involved in that operation. I was actually at one engine. I know 16 went. I know some other companies went up there. I know a lot of folks knew Nate. And then the 60% had difficulty transmitting due to radio traffic. Josh Laird. And the after-action stuff that Frederick did with their line of duty death with Battalion Chief Laird. There were I forget how many attempted transmissions during that Mayday sequence that they had up there. If one of those hadn't happened, would that have been another opportunity for him to talk on the radio? Don't know. But that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And it goes, the transmitting due to radio traffic, that speaks a lot to radio discipline, right? So if you're doing communications drills with your folks, we talk about, hey, listen, I don't need you just telling me stuff. I need you listening to the radio. We ran with Chief Davis. We ran that fire where we had the wire across truck 15. Probably it was a V Street in 12's area. No, or maybe it wasn't a V Street. But anyway, Chief Davis was the incident commander, and I think the 5th time somebody told him the wire was over the ladder truck was enough. I think probably the first time was enough. Why did he hear it 5 times? Because everybody is so focused on again, stretching the lines, throwing the ladders, going in there, putting the fire out, conducting searches, that kind of stuff. There's only so much we can do as a human being, but if we train with our radios, when you're doing these battalion drills and these company drills, get the radios out. We have battalion training talk groups that you can use. You can press the EB on those talk groups and practice the emergency button in the lunar sequence and the Mayday sequence. You need to get these radios and this communications piece into your training. It's vital. The only way we're going to get better at being concise on the radio giving good reports, the push-pull communications, and radio discipline. The only way you get better at it is if you train. Look at anything else you've done in your career. You've prepared for it, you do well, it's because you prepared for it. Are we using communications tools in training to the best way, to the best of our abilities? And I'm going to argue that we're not, but we can and we will. And I'm hoping that today, when you walk away from this, you've taken some notes down and that you're going to do some of this stuff. How do we best prepare so that we minimize communications on the fire ground? Well, we've talked about that a little bit already. The training piece. We prepare by training. We get the radios out. It doesn't have to be in a company drill where you're doing a scenario. It can be in the firehouse. How many times have you heard on before we had the battalion talk groups? You would hear like one of the radio channels that was scanned in over the station audio. You'd hear folks practicing for promotion, and I thought that was awesome. They're using the radio system. They're using the actual radio system we use on working incidents to practice to prepare for promotion because they want to be that good. That's pretty awesome. And we can do that. The battalion training talk groups are a great example of it. What a great tool to have to incorporate communications into your training. See old Russ Hartung there. Russ, shout out to you. Russ doing his thing with the comms, #1 comm guy, no doubt. We train. We train. We train. We train on communications. Remember Chief Richie Bowers, train, train, train. Everybody thought that was kind of funny, a train, train, train piece. But we train, we train, we train. Keep training in your life. Keep communications training in your life. Incorporate it into your stuff. I'm going to say it 100 times today, so you may as well write it down now. Let's talk Maydays. Again, Chief First gave me that, Rob. Rob takes pictures of his buggy polished up and sends them to me. Work truck 704 doesn't get that love. It gets washed. I'm not going to. If it gets too much love, it's going to think it's actually a twin turbo F-150 XLT. It's an F-150 XL. It needs to realize it's a work truck. But Rob sends me these polished up pictures of his buggy in operation, and we meet. So we'll run an incident together. We ran like a one box, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. Hey, let's meet up at this park off of, I forget where we even were, near Manchester somewhere. Let's meet up here, and we got in each other's vehicles, and we went through a scenario together. How easy was that? It took us like 20 minutes, and we got a rep in. We got a rep of practicing the Mayday sequence in. Because at 2 a.m., when I'm still wiping my eyes, pulling up behind Company 25 across the street on Pear Tree, I don't want to have to struggle with the Mayday sequence. I want to prepare for it. I'm going to train for it. And the best way to do it is with your friends, okay? I value the relationship I have with Chief First so much because he pushes me with stuff. And then we end up doing it. And we're on the same page with it. We train. We want to train because we want to be better. We want to be the best. Are you going to be the best? Maybe not, but you're going to train to be the best. Think about how you thought about Maydays as a firefighter. And again, keep the communications piece in the back of your head. We're talking about communications today. I know as a anybody in the chat want to talk about how they thought about Maydays as a firefighter. I can tell you, I always thought if I was ever trapped by debris or something like that, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. I'm going to get my EB. I'm going to give this perfect lunar. I'm going to get my rip pack on, or get my what do you call it? Get my pass alarm going so they hear me. I'm going to be making noise. You know, they're going to hear me fighting. You know, you're thinking about it in that regards. How about as a company officer? Okay, I know I was always, hey, if we get in that real bad job where things are really going south, I'm going ahead of them. I'm going ahead. It's going to be me first. And then I'm thinking, if it's one of my guys that falls through, I'm going to be right there. I'm going to be on top of it. And I'm going to give effective comms, and I'm going to tell them exactly where we are. It never works out that way. But that's the way we thought about it, right? Because, again, we want to be the best. We want to make sure we're there 100%. But we're human beings, and there's no way. We are not the NFL. We don't schedule our game days, right? They're scheduled for us, and you have no idea who you're playing against. How about now, as a chief officer? What's changed? A lot more responsibility. You've got a battalion of 50, 60, 70 people. And you're in the car. You're managing an incident, a multi-unit incident. You've got people, divisions and groups. You've broken your incident down as we do. And you're getting good radio returns and that kind of stuff. But always in the back of my head, especially on the difficult fires, you pull up, things are going, you know, the fires, we're not going south. The fire's going south. We're there to fix that. We're putting our folks, we're asking them to go into hell, to put the fire out, to search for trapped occupants, to get the incident scaled down to where we can manage it. And in the back of my head, I know most of you probably feel the same way. You're in that car, and especially when you're by yourself, you're waiting for that second chief to come. It's lonely. Things are happening very fast, but it's still, you're like, man, I wish I had an extra person here. And I'm just thinking about, you know, okay, I know my flip down's there for Mayday. If it happens, I'm ready. And you know, there might be a break where the first line's being stretched, and I've already got some radio returns in a couple seconds. I'll think in my head, you know, consciously think in my head, okay, remember the Mayday sequence. If the building starts showing signs that we need to get everybody out, how am I talking about the evacuation sequence? And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But it changes. It changes with your level of responsibility. And I argue that when I was in the company, we did a lot of training. We trained every shift. You were either training to get somebody checked out as a driver, you're training because you had a probationary employee, you're training because you wanted to be better, because you love this job and you come in every day and you want to be that person, right? And then, you know, as a firefighter, as a company officer, as a chief, again, there's this opportunity. We just got to make sure we're seizing it. There's opportunity for us to train and for us to get better and for us to be as good as we can be. So from our IRP, I think most of us review this stuff from time to time. You have your command action guides to refer to, but I like to go back into the IRP and take a look. And that pause, listen, look, light thing, it's pretty important. I think about that from time to time. If we had a collapse and we knew we had personnel operating on the inside, and you're not hearing anything. You're not hearing anything from anybody on the inside of where anybody is or if anybody is indeed trapped. Okay? What are you going to do? We're going to pause, listen, look, light. We're going to get folks in positions at windows, starting with the most threatened part where we can get people in. And we're gonna do a tactical pause, whatever you want to call it. Tactical pause, radio silence, doesn't matter. Communicate it over the radio so your folks know, and we want to listen. I've done this on an incident where we had trapped occupants, not our folks. I asked everybody to be quiet. I wanted radio silence, so God forbid if that person's in there and they're trying to fight to get out, maybe we hear them screaming. Maybe we hear them trying to fight to get out of a room. So some of us have used this tactic on the fire ground, not necessarily with a Mayday, but certainly with trapped occupants. It's another thing we can use. A tactical pause, radio silence, again, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure your folks are doing it, and there's a reason we're doing it. We want every opportunity. We want to use every one of our senses to find this person if we don't know where they are. Boss.
There's a couple comments running around in the chat that I think probably worthy of just discussing because remember everybody watching is not on the chat. So,
right.
A couple comments and then a question. One, I guess it was a reference to a Mayday tone, which really doesn't exist anymore, and that was tied back to the safe structural firefighting policy, where they would use the pre-alert during a Mayday.
Yeah, I corrected myself. I said I meant to say evac team.
Well, that was from Chief first, so you have to clean it up with him. I'm not sure that's his picture because I don't think he parks in the grass. There was a couple notes that thought that the Howard County incident that the fellow was on the wrong channel at the time, which if you think about Clare Ridge Road, right, our Mayday on Clare Ridge that we had quite some time ago, those folks were not on the Fireground channel because A box alarm had occurred prior to Clare Ridge, which had gone to the secondary incident, and their radios, I believe, were still on the secondary incident, right? So in today's world, that would be like being on 7 Alpha 8 instead of 4.
Yeah.
And then the Frederick County was transmitted but kept getting stepped on. And I think if we think about Arliss Street, right, the amount of radio traffic that occurred on Arliss Street, the amount of messages that never made it through because people talking.
Yeah.
And then this one was looking for some discussion out of Tech Ops, or you, right? Portable radio the portable radio will return the user to the lead talk group when the EB button is depressed.
So if somebody's knocked off, if you've moved off Alpha 4, let's say you're working
7
Yeah.
Alpha 5, let's say.
and you hit your EB, it will return to Alpha 4. Yes. So again, that we arguably have the best technology, communications technology that's out there, and that's a testament to our leadership. It's a testament to Montgomery County government for supporting us, and that's the kind of stuff. Again, it's one less domino that could fall, that could crescendo to a line of duty death. It's something to think about. And there's a lot of stuff that's out there, and there's I'll share one of the resources that it's actually in this presentation, the Radio 1 book. There's a lot of really good resources, especially for command officers in there, for not only day-to-day stuff, but for when the stuff gets bad. But this is all stuff we need to be looking at. I think most of us do. We refer to it, maybe not every day, maybe not every shift, but every once in a while you get that Sunday or that downtime at night after dinner, and I'll open the books. I keep a binder in our battalion vehicle that has all this stuff in there, and then I also have our CAGs kind of laminated on a ring. And it's not necessarily to refer to during an incident. I might be out and about somewhere and just I'll flip through that book, just to take a look at one thing, because I don't want to have to rely on my bean at 2 a.m. to recall everything. It's impossible for me. I don't have a photographic memory. God bless those that do. I can tell you in the early 90s when I was at MC and Chief Davis was teaching, and Chief Goldstein was firefighter Goldstein. He sat next to me. I used to get really upset because he got hundreds all the time, and I would put in the work to study. I wanted to be that A student, and I think Chief Goldstein probably has a photograph on top of being probably being very prepared all the time. I think also he's got that gift, and I don't have it, so I have to go back. I have to go back and refer to this stuff, and it's good. It's good to do it, right? We want to be the best. Remember, talking about that ECC piece. When you bring ECC into your training, they know this stuff up there. When they do their training, they're well versed on this stuff. But they'll start at a 15-minute timer. I'd forgotten about that until I reread this IRP. And I think everything else in there is pretty common sense, but I had forgotten about that 15-minute timer. What do we got? All right. Again, I said I'd talk about this. When's the last time you heard the evac tone? So I do have audio, John. I'll fire it up here. Is that going to mess you up? All right. So this is the evac tone. I hadn't heard it in a while. That's what it sounds like. So this fire here happened a few months ago. Into the attic, burned the roof off of it, and at one point it looked like we might have had a part of the roof that was going to come in, and we evacuated. And two things that that are in our IRP about evacuations that I didn't do, and they're considerations. It doesn't say you must. It's an action of opportunity, and there they are. The incident commander should give consideration to ordering apparatus drivers to sound their air horns in 3 long blasts. I can tell you the last time I heard that, I was, I got a bushy tail. I listen to everything. PG evacuated on a fire last week, and as the incident commander was saying something, you heard the air horns. They're on the air horns. Talk to your people about that, okay? Maybe you say evacuate and somebody's in the, hey, I want to get a little, get a little more water on this, or I'm backing out or whatever. They start hearing those air horns. That's going to give them that extra cue that, hey, I need to get the hell out of here. And then also, the incident commander should give consideration to ordering ECC to sound the evacuation tone on all talk groups associated with the incident. I think that's huge too. And again, if we're training with them, and they're doing their training in their own environment up there, but if we bring them into our training at the company level, at the battalion level, and they have the opportunity to actually hit that button on their Centricom, there's a button they hit for it, it's training for them. And at 2 a.m., when I ask them to sound the evac tone, they're not going to be looking for it. Boom. I know how to hit that. I've hit it in training. I hit it in training not only at the PSCC, I hit it in the field doing some joint training with the folks, and boom, I'm good. So again, we have the battalion talk groups. Use a training channel. Get the dispatchers involved. It can be a good contact up there, Captain Holmquist, Ben Holmquist. You can hit him up. You can call ECC, call the direct line. Get on the phone and say, hey, we're doing this drill today. You have anybody in training that might want to participate? Absolutely. I guarantee you, they're not going to say no. It's cool stuff to do, right? They're working with us on every incident. They're talking to us on the radio all the time. Get them involved in the training. Do a complete command sequence. Don't just, the first time I did this, I kind of shortened it because I was like, I want to focus on, it was a 2-in-1 operation, and all of a sudden one of the firefighters in the first line becomes a mayday. And I shortened the command sequence to focus on the mayday, and I wish I hadn't done that. Because again, it's extra practice for me. It's extra practice for them, and it's extra practice for our telecommunicators that we want to bring into our training. Go through the mayday sequence. Let's say you're doing a company level drill that's, or a battalion drill that doesn't involve a mayday. At the end of it, you can still, you've got your operator on the other side of the radio. Hey, listen, while we're here together, let's go through a mayday sequence. Boom. Takes what, 10 minutes? That's easy time. Again, the evac tones, and I think everybody does this on your battalion drills, but get them on the radios and have them practice their on-scene reports. Have them practice their initial on-scene report. Have them practice an LCAN. Have them practice Lunar. Have them use this robust and truly exceptional communication system we have to the best of your advantage in your training. All right. So this is the techie part. This is where I'll just talk about some things. I got some tech tips in there. I need to stop saying tech tips. I can't say it. We'll talk about some of our communications technology stuff, some reminders about some new stuff that's out there. Again, some of you may know this stuff, some of you may not, but just to talk about it. So when you get on the scene with we have this thing. It's now called a DVRS. What's the difference between a VRS and a DVRS? Anybody in the chat? I'll give it a second for the chat to pop up. Any of my tech ops dudes out there folks out there want to talk about it? I mean, the answer's up there, Connie.
Digital.
Digital.
Somebody's answered digital.
Right. And what does that digital do for us?
By the way, the scheduler was the first to answer that, so kudos to the scheduler.
Big props. Good props.
I am available tonight.
Passes encryption through if we're on a secure talk group, and it extends the P25 Project 25. It's it's what our radio system is. It passes the features of our radio system onto conventional simplex or duplex channels. What that means for us is when we're using VRS, you know how VRS works. The radio that you've tuned in. Let's say we're on Alpha 4. The incident commander gets there. VRS is active, Alpha 7 for if you need VRS. When they go to Alpha 7, it moves off our radio system. Now we've gone to what we used to have way back when. That portable radio is talking to your command post as kind of like a repeater system. and then your command post is picking that up and putting it in the system. Well, when they transmit now, it passes through their identifier, so you can see who it is. When we first got VRSs, I'll never forget it, because I was a communications guy then. Chief Reed came, he was at 3, yelling at Eddie Norris, I'm pretty sure. And he was asking about, hey, this VRS, like, how do I know? And at the time, you know, it was literally, you would see the hex, you would see a 5-digit number come up, and you had to figure out who that was based on, that's why if you look at our battalion lineups, that those things, those are in the radio trackers too, those numbers are in there. That's from that. But with this DVRS now, that stuff's passed through. So it's a really nice upgrade to our vehicle repeater system cache. Add this in with the talking to the battalion chief bump up candidates in their class last week, but I stole this slide from it because it talks about VRS, and I wanted to talk about how our DVRS operates now, because again, I think this is something that maybe not a lot of you probably have seen this somewhere. Again, we're inundated with emails and information, and sometimes it's hard to keep up with it. Sometimes you read it and you got eight other things going on and you might not remember it. But remember, with our new DVRS, we have 4, really 5, 4 in a shared one with the police, VRS channels that we can use to manage incidents. What's that mean for us? We get a complex incident, one VRS isn't going to step over the other. And I wanted to talk about this too. We used to say, you know, hey, VRS is active, you need it, use it. When you do that, make sure you say, if you're on Alpha 4, you know, units on Alpha 4 operating, VRS is active, 7 Alpha 7 if you need VRS. It used to be Alpha 7 and Alpha 11. Alpha 11 is now 7 Alpha 8's VRS, and guess what? It's a different channel. So when you look down at your mobile radio, when you go into 7 Alpha 4, into VRS mode, you'll see DVRS 1A, okay? That's for Alpha 4. If down the street, let's say we had storms came through last night and backfed a neighborhood and we had 2 working fires, that's happened in this county. The 7 Alpha 8 incident, they've got their own VRS talk group that they can use if they need it. We're not using the same one anymore. It used to be just 1, and now we've got, again, 4. And a 5th one if it really gets bad, fifth VRS channel we share with the police. So 7 Alpha 4 uses the DVRS 1A, that's on 7 Alpha 7. 7 Alpha 8 uses DVRS 2A, and again, that's on 7 Alpha 11. And I implore you to say that on the radio when you tell them VRS is active. Don't just tell them VRS is active. That's great, great. And most of your squared away folks know it's on Alpha 7, but remind them. Remind them. If you're on Alpha 8, they might try to go to Alpha 7. I don't know, it's 2 a.m. A lot of things are going on. Say it over the radio. Smash that DVRS hotkey. Alpha 4, again, Alpha 7, Alpha 8, Alpha 11. Out in the chat, what is the VRS talk group for 7 Bravo 4? Seven Bravo 7. That's right. For 7 Bravo 8, 7 Bravo 11. 7 Bravo 11. Thanks, Chief Ogren. I appreciate it. Chief Ogren came in person. It means a lot that you did that. I appreciate it, man. And thanks for helping with the questions. But this is just stuff, again. We have a lot of technology. We have a lot of stuff we have to remember. And I'm hoping that this helps refresh you and maybe clues you in. And hopefully, again, jot this down. Don't just say VRS is active. I forgot a slide. Let's talk about more than one VRS. You get large buildings. I think most everybody knows you can use more than one VRS on the scene. So we have 2 command vehicles. Let's say we had a third one, one of the volunteer chiefs that has a battalion command platform. Let's say all 3 of us are there, and this is a giant building. Okay, we can put those in service at different points in that large building to better cover that building with VRS. They don't interfere with each other. It's not an issue. But have that in your playbook. You run a large building. Let's say the enclave, and you end up with a major incident there, and one wing they're not getting you, and the other wing they are. Have that second chief go around, smash a DVRS button, get DVRS up, and you have it on opposite ends of the incident, opposite wings of the building, you're going to have a better chance or they're going to have a better chance inside of getting out if they need it. As most of you know, where are we at time-wise? Am I good? Oh, wow. Decent. We have new ICOM aviation radios. They're in a Pelican case. They're on, let's see, Battalion 3, Battalion 5, Battalion 4, 28, and 17. So in the command vehicles, they're in a Pelican case with the radio and some accessories, and there's this little laminated sheet front and back, and it basically, we've simplified it. The old aviation radios had a lot more information, and in my opinion, because we don't use these things all the time, it wasn't necessarily setting you up for failure, but we're basically got two places we're going to go, right? MC Air Park and Davis Airfield. If you hit your memory recall button 1 and enter, it takes you to MC Air Park. Memory recall 2 and enter, it takes you to Davis Airfield. Boom, you're in. That's all you need to know. At the top is your channel selector for the top part of the knob, and the bottom part of the knob is the volume. Your power button's lower left. It's a typical that circle with the slash. And then your push to talk is on the side. So these are new radios. If you haven't gotten this radio out and taken a look at it, take a look at it. Practice tuning to those respective channels. And then, add it to your Sunday routine too. So, on Sundays, the chiefs do we pull the meters out, pull everything out, make sure everything has fresh batteries, that kind of stuff, and add this to it. Add this piece of technology to it. Are we going to ever use it? I mean, there's a lot of airplanes in the sky around here, and both of those fields are pretty active. I'd say the answer is yes. So make sure you're playing with this thing. On the back end of that, on the back side of that laminated sheet, it tells you what you need to say. And again, there's a reminder at the bottom that tells you how to tune to the appropriate channel based on where you are for the respective incident. Any questions so far in the chat? Anything else in the chat, boss?
No, we're going to turn Robert First's comments off here shortly. Obviously, nothing to do there this morning. No, we're good.
All right. As you know, our radio system's been upgraded. We basically doubled our sites, and a lot of really smart people, Captain Dallas Lip being kind of like the forefront of that with the rest of the folks at Tech Ops and with our radio system folks, really designed a pretty awesome system. There's very few places in this county where you're not getting good comms. Think about the river. Before we went to this new radio system, I was bumped up down in Battalion 2, and we run the river, and we were getting on the Victor 7 patch all the time. It was a standard thing. Chief Blinkhorn and Chief Couse both told me, look, that Victor 7's there. You're probably going to need it if you're going to have to talk to those folks. And if not, we were using the Zello phone. The Zello phone was our backup for that. And now the way they have these radio sites, especially down there, there's no problems on that river. It's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome that they were able to design a system that is that robust. And again, I know I'll say it 100 times today, but we're very fortunate to have the level of technology we have in this department. We really are. Here's the radio sites. I'll take a look at that. Bad at this. There we go. So anyway, that's where they are. As you also know, I'm sure you remember, like the old system had relied on fiber to connect those sites. Now it's by microwave, so it's point to point. One dish is pointing at one site and the other's pointing at the other. If any of those loops break, so if a site goes down, the system, very smart, very intelligent system, it basically runs around it. It gets to the next one. Very effective way to cover the county, and Lord knows how they figured this stuff out, but it's pretty awesome that they did. I can tell you there's, as with our last radio system, I was involved with coverage testing. They sent a bunch of us new comm guys out. We're in basements in the middle of nowhere checking the radios. They did the same systems testing for this one with tech ops folks, and they tested everywhere, including the river. They were on the river testing. They tested all the places that we had traditionally had communications problems. They tested, and they figured out that this was the best way to do it. And it's pretty awesome that they figured that stuff out. I'll check that out. And I can scroll with that thing. Pretty cool. See, including Maryland First, that tower that's Georgian ICC is co-located with Maryland First. I think there's maybe one other, I forget. But anyway, again, working with our regional partners, we were able to put together one heck of a radio system. The Radio 1 book, this is something that is out there. It's on Quick Links, very easy to find. People will tell you how to navigate through Quick Links to find something. There's that search bar. The search bar in Quick Links is awesome. 90% of the time, it takes me exactly where I need to go, and if not, like 2 or 3 links down, it's there. If you type one book into that search function under Quick Links, boom, you're right there. And the one book talks a lot about our radio system, talks about how things are. Again, when you're doing your radio training, talk about fail-soft, talk about site trunking, talk about this stuff with your folks. It's in the one book. And it talks about a lot of stuff, too. If we had communications problems, what would we do? And it also has some stuff about our neighboring jurisdictions in there, and we'll take a look at that.
I have a question before you move on.
Yes.
This came from Chief Hinkle, and you may or may not know the answer. Why is emergency 121.500 not on the air park radio?
And what is that?
Yeah, and for me, like, what is that?
That's the guard channel, right? Any of my tech ops folks in the chat, can you answer that?
Somebody hop in on that. We're not sure what Chief Hinkle's talking about there.
Yeah, so the old radios had that in there, and I think that's the guard channel. That's the for you folks. I think it's even in some of the basic NIM stuff they talk about, like the forestry folks. They had that guard channel. Everybody always monitors that. Any of you mariners out there, channel 16, I think it's the same way, and I think that's what he's talking about. And
Stand by. So 121.5 is guard for aviation. All aircraft in SFRA, I don't know what that is, are required to monitor when in the area.
Okay.
Captain Huck says, correct, standard aviation emergency channel. So I'm only reading, so people in the chat can understand there's other people, company officers that are not on the chat. So it's important that we catch some of this stuff.
Sure.
So.
He's a pilot too, so he's...
Yeah.
Gotcha. Our special flight rules area. So SFRA is special flight rules area.
Wow.
So when they're scrambling them jets,
That
you probably have done something wrong.
Shoo.
All right, thank you for the folks who hopped in on there. Thanks for clarifying that. See, we got really smart people out there, right?
I'm telling you.
We don't know why it's not on.
I could have found it on my phone, but somebody knew it before that. And I'd have been smarter than my phone.
So if you look at this this one book, there's a bunch of really good information in here that's relevant to our radio system. Some quick reference stuff in here.
I'm going to hop in one more time because I think Chief Engel brought up a good point, and then I'll leave this alone. He said we should be announcing on the emergency, which is that one we just had, channel, if we are closing one of the air parks.
Okay, so we need to get that in there.
So if you're the incident commander, right, that would be one of the things that would be important to consider. If you're closing one of the air parks because of an emergency incident, right?
That needs to be transmitted.
That needs to be
as well
announced
as-
on that channel.
Okay. Good stuff. This just talks about our 22 site, 20 channel digital trunked 800 megahertz system. We've got your fleet maps in here. Again, all good stuff to look at. your fail-soft radio fleet map. Remember, we drop back to certain channels for certain things as opposed to just having every talk group available to us. And again, that's stuff. Here's a quick reference for your fail-soft and your site trunking. You'll know when we're in fail-soft mode. You'll see the word fail-soft on your radio system. When we go into fail-soft, we revert to a fairly simple system with fairly simple rules. There are only a handful of channels, so people could easily talk over one another. Unless you have something to say vitally or important to say, keep quiet. What condition does ECC go into? Starts with R and ends with the ED, red. You go into condition red, right? And you know, they don't go into condition red just to go into condition red. They go into condition red because things are so busy that routine traffic, there's just no time for it. And again, it goes back to radio discipline. And take it right back to the beginning of this presentation when we talk about working with your folks to get them working on radio discipline. It's a great way to kind of hit it home. Condition red, stay off the radio. They don't want to hear poll numbers and that kind of stuff. They might say, hey, just give us an NBC message for it. And they might not even be able to get to it then because things are that busy. Okay, they go to condition red, it's busy up there. If you have not been up there during condition red or worked up there, I can tell you it is busy. They don't just casually go to condition red. That's not the case. So site trunking, there'll be more of an impact to the PSCC than the user in the field, and you'll see site trunking on your radio. Understand why there's minimal to no impact in the field. ECC is using backup resources that makes things difficult for them. So again, they're going to go in condition red. The condition red isn't because we've lost all our talk groups. It's because they have to drop back and punt to a backup part of our radio system to effectively communicate with the folks in the field. And that's how it works. So again, there's all kinds of really good stuff in here. And some of this stuff is, I don't want to call it doomsday, but I don't know, an asteroid causes an electromagnetic pulse and fries a bunch of stuff. And now we got to start looking where we're going to talk. I don't know. But there's stuff in here. There's stuff in here that if we get in a jam, there's really good amount of resources in here for us to use. Anybody know? So I'll give you a question in the chat. If our radio system goes down, does the Zello feature still work on the phones? Absolutely.
Oh my God.
That's exactly. So that's a great thing to know, right? Cool. It's a great thing to know. Radio system goes down, and again, it's like anything else with our communication system. ECC is going to provide that direction. Hey, listen, radio system's down. The doc or the ops chief or whoever is now telling you, hey, we're going to operate here. You'll go there, and that's where we'll operate. It's no different than, hey, go to Alpha 4 for your working incident. That's the beauty of our communication system is ECC, sometimes with the, after consulting and directing with ops, they'll tell us, hey, we're moving to this. This is what we're doing until we get whatever it is fixed. So again, let's say Sonam fails to work. We have a U-zone. The U-zone is some radio sites in the county. Go ahead.
So this was not in the, you may have to repeat my question, I don't have a mic. Zellophone specifically, if we're monitoring multiple channels, dispatch, ops, and the talk group, is there a order that we hear those?
You know, I don't know. I know the one you're primarily tuned to, so the one on your main screen, if you go in here.
I don't know if John, was that question audio go out? Okay.
The one that's on your face, that's the one you'll be able to transmit on. I don't know what the hierarchy is, and that's a good question. I know Captain Matt Halk's on here. He may have that answer. That's a good.
Do you have a recommendation from a comms if we are utilizing Zellophones? Does it matter the number of units on? Does it degrade as more units
No.
go on?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
So we could operate countywide, all
Yeah.
firehouses, everybody, and we get the same quality.
Yep. Yeah, that's the beauty of that. I mean, what a great piece of technology to have for our organization. Not only just for when stuff goes wrong, but when stuff goes right. And it's another piece of technology we have to better make us aware of what's going on. You know, even if it's like, hey, I like listening to incidents. I want to, and I'll listen because I'm learning. I'm not listening because I want to. Well, a little bit of it's because of my bushy tail. I'll admit it, but. A lot of us like to listen because we want to learn. Hey, what happened on that fire? What if I was the incident commander on the fire? What if I was a firefighter on that fire? You know, you hear what happened, what went down, and then you talk to people afterwards. You've listened to the incident, and you know, it's a good way to. It's a good training piece, right? It's a good way to make yourself better.
And Chief, I'm sorry, one last thing with that question, the training component.
Sure.
If I were to go to work on Friday and decide that I'm going to run until lunchtime with just my Zello phone, just to practice, and everybody in my company is going to do it just to practice, are there any negative backsides to that?
As long as we have, as long as you have cell coverage with that AT&T Band 14 FirstNet phone, there aren't. The only thing I'll say, if you do that, make sure you have your portable with you, because you know obviously you're not going to use it in a working incident. But I'll tell you where I use it. Leisure World Giant. Leisure World Giant radio system degrades a little bit. I don't completely lose, but there's certain areas in that Giant where it'll be spotty a little bit, and I fire up my Zello work phone, and boom, I hear everything clear as day. AT&T works in there. Oh, by the way, if you have a Verizon phone, does not work in the Leisure World parking lot, or Leisure World Giant parking lot, or in the Leisure World Giant. So have your Sonic phone with you.
Couple notes here from Captain Huck. If the county radio system is down, Zello works as a cell phone only talk group, agnostic from the radio system.
Dumb that down a little.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
So you're
Agnostic is like somebody doesn't go to church,
yeah.
right?
So you're still on your Zello phone. It still says Alpha 2, but it's only going from Zello work to Zello work to it's only going in that system. It's not going out to the radio system at that point.
If the radio system is down. So if the radio system's up, Friday I go to work, radio system up, I tell ambulance 702, hey, the next 3 calls you go on, I want you to use a Zello phone just so you know how to use it. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Negative. Yeah, I think.
It says here ECC does not know the portable that's transmitting.
There you go. That's the caveat. So when you transmit with the Zello phone, it doesn't. So like if you run an incident, you're going to go back to your portable. But if let's say it's routine comms, that kind of stuff, you're using it for situational awareness. Or you're carrying it with you and you're in a building and you're not able to transmit. You're on a BLS call or an ALS1 call. Again, it's another tool that you have. But yeah, when you transmit, it doesn't say engine 702 OIC. It says
it's an emergency situation.
Right.
Well, also then, in an emergency, if you were having an emergency, you would have to make sure you identify yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. You're in a place, you got your Zello phone, you have your portable radio is not getting out, you're using your Zello phone, you're in a crisis, you need help, you would have to identify yourself on that phone. That would probably be the better practice, right?
Yes.
Battalion
absolutely.
Chief 701, Montgomery. Right.
Absolutely.
Making sure that you identify who you are.
Back to this U zone. So again, we've got we have multiple layers to address a communications issue in this county. And again, I'll say it for the 100th time, ECC will tell you where to go. Again, ECC makes these decisions. The PSCC makes these decisions based on in concert with Ops. Ops is always in there, whether it be the doc, the operations executive chief, the operations chief, that kind of thing. A lot of these things that happen when we have to move from the way we do things routinely, all that stuff happens in the background. The decisions are made by some very educated people that make very good decisions for organizations. So it's good. It's good stuff. Just again, I won't belabor the point with the Radio 1 book, but there's a lot of stuff in here. You go to Prince George's County. Here's their fleet map. Go to Frederick. Go to Howard. Go to Carroll. Got some multi-jurisdictional stuff in here. Just a lot of good stuff in this Radio 1 book. So use it as a resource. Save it as a link in your if you use whatever, I don't know, Chrome, or save it on your phone as a link. Make it as a tile on your phone. It's a nice thing. It's a nice quick reference to have for when either maybe you're having a drill, or maybe something does go sideways, or maybe you're running mutual aid and you're there for an extended period of time. Punch it up and take a look at the mutual aid fleet map so you know what's going on. With the bump up folks, we were talking about the numbering convention for the phones. You know, this 240, 243. All of all the phones in the apparatus, so the apparatus, Sonom, Zellophone, whatever you want to call it. Basically, everything has this 243 number, 240, 243, 7, and the XYZ that tells you what they are. So the phone number for engine 733 is 240, 243, 7, 3 for engine, and then or 3, and then 1 for engine. Sorry, 33 is the station, and then 1 for the first engine. So there's a method to the madness. And again, some people way smarter than me came up with this numbering convention for our phones, and it's nice because you know, we have this 240, 243 extension, and we're all on it. You know, so there's not just these random numbers out there. Oh, well, what's 2's pumper's number? 202 674 5555. I don't know. No, it's, you know, you can figure it out. As you know, the battalion command platforms have the Axon cameras now. A few things about those that you may or may not know. Multi-factor authentication, so that's a part, not unlike MCG, not unlike our Outlook and county networks. Multi-factor authentication is a thing. It's a good thing. It provides another level for people to not get into our stuff and mess it up. So the multi-factor authentication used to be tied to the email. We've now tied it to the phone. So if you go to you set your battalion command platform up in the morning, and you get to your Axon screen, and it's asking you to log back in, it's going to send you an MFA code to the battalion phone. There's a recordings tab on the actual the app. We'll call it an app that's on the MDC. The recordings can be found under the evidence tab. They're available for 12 hours after the recording ends. To request a recording, I think everybody knows, fill a TSR out. Look, I'm going to tell you, you know, the battery pillowing thing happened semi-recently. That happened last summer too. We've had these the problems with the batteries and the Sonom phones pillowing. It's just due to excessive heat, and you know, we know lithium-ion batteries are a problem, not only in public safety but in society in general. You know, it's like anything else. The 100th thing that comes off the line might have an issue. Who knows? But you come up with something like that. Anything that goes wrong with your technology, fill a TSR out. We see them. You know, if it's an urgent thing, we have the 240-777-2233 you can call, or get your battalion chief on the horn. But the technology section needs to be aware of it first. That way we can start. Look, if you come to me, hey, my battery's pillowing, and I tell you to fill a TSR out, and you go do something completely different, there's a gap. I could have had you a new battery in like an hour, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't know. Fill the TSR out. Fill the TSR out so it gives us the notification that there's an issue, and B, we can replace it for you. Okay. Back to the Axon cameras. Like the old arbitrator cameras, activating your warning lights turns it on. In addition, the camera will activate at 85 miles an hour if you don't have your lights on. And it senses if you're in a collision, not unlike the iPhones do now, and the OnStar and all that stuff. I guess it senses that shock. There's a shock sensor in the hardware associated with the Axon cameras, and it will turn on then. If you want to manually activate the camera, there's a larger button on the left of the back of the camera. Just hit that once. You don't have to. Remember, we used to have to press and hold with the arbitrators. You don't have to press and hold anymore. Press it once, it turns on. And again, to turn it off, press once, it turns off. There's a green LED associated with the fact that the thing's ready to record. When you turn your lights on or manually activate it, you get a red flashing light. And that lets you know, hey, this thing's recording your audio and video as you're going down the road and on your working incident. Again, there's 2 panes in the record screen in the Axon app. Our camera defaults to the left 1X recording. That's what you're going to see your incident on. And if you haven't requested a video for your Axon recordings yet, you'll see the talk about HD and wide angle. You really see a greater part of your incident with these new cameras. They're really nice cameras. But the 3X thing is a police thing for reading license plates. We don't read license plates. We use the 1X feature only. We use it, again, to get us that great situational awareness for a learning piece on the back end. So in summary, we talked today about communications being arguably the #1 problem on the fire ground. We talked about ways to prepare, to better ourselves so that when we do have those problems, we can better surmount them. We talked about Mayday comms, big, you have any of these email lists, firefighter close calls, there's always a Mayday in this country. Like, it seems like every other day there's a Mayday and a series of events that occurs after the Mayday. Get that in your training. Get that training with your folks with it. Get the radio system, the communications, the telecommunicators into your stuff, and it's good stuff. And then we talked about some tech tips. Tech tips. I cannot say tech tips. If you have any further questions about any of this stuff, again, you can reach out to our tech ops folks, Captain Matt Halk, the PSCC. There's some great folks up there, including Chief Ed Radcliffe, Captain Ben Holmquist, and the cadre up there that runs that place. They're top-notch folks. Any questions for me? I call myself the Walmart greeter of technology. Like, I know this stuff, but there's people that are way smarter than me in technology. There's a reason I'm not a meteorologist and I'm a firefighter, because I'm terrible at math. Matt Houck can see the zeros and ones. Mike Zingaro can see the zeros and ones. And there's a lot of folks out there that know a lot more about this stuff that are really geniuses with our radio system. And it's a testament to them and a testament to our organization that supports them in learning this stuff. Or give me an email. Thank you. I appreciate the time that you gave me today to present. There's my family. Believe it or not, yeah, I'm married with 2 kids. Who knew that was going to happen? But they thank you, and have a great day. Appreciate you guys.
All right, great job. Thanks, Chief Villani. So we want to close out this session. We're going to take a break. We'll be back live at 09:30 hours. A couple of notes I just want to pass on. One, so today is Battalion Chief Monty Fitch's last day of working, and if you have an opportunity to give him a call or stop by the 1st Battalion office, they're having, some luncheon and going away stuff there. Similar to Captain Billingsley, I had the privilege of seeing Chief Fitch in his early days. He was a rookie for me at Station 1, so it's kind of exciting to see somebody through their whole career. Just like Chief Villani, I now realize I had the pleasure of being his recruit school instructor. And so always happy to see people progress through and do a great job, and really good work there. Also, overnight, you may have seen that Captain Jason Masters was promoted to battalion chief, so always excited for that. I also was his recruit school instructor. So a lot of good things happening as I end up my time here. Always good to see good people get promoted. Bunch of promotions have happened out there. Kudos to all those folks who made it through that process, withstood the stand of time, and got promoted. So, all right, we'll be back at 09:30 hours with Chief Couse, who is going to continue on some more discussion about communication stuff. Hey, good morning again. Welcome back to our second session of today's From the Command Post. If you're just joining, make sure that if you want your COPDI credit that you fill the form out that's available through the quick links, right? We've moved to COPDI through that, the jot form, whatever. Anyway, we're happy today to, second part of our presentation is Battalion Chief Erik Couse. And he's going to talk about push-pull communications. Those of you not familiar with that, it's been a term that's been around for a while now. There's been some discussion about it. We've had some presentations about it. Some of this was just presented to the recent folks who took the battalion chief's test and are on the list. But there is stuff here for everybody. So while it may be focused on the command officer, right, certainly everybody is involved in the radio communication process and face-to-face communication process. Whether you're the person riding the ambulance or you're the company officer on the ladder company or you're the second battalion chief in the car, it really doesn't matter. So we'll be moderating the chat as we did before. Those of you that continue on, really appreciate that. I thought there was a lot of good chat that occurred during our Sam Villani's presentation. Captain Brady Miller is also with us today. He's on the chat helping, he'll be a moderator as well for this second half, so you may hear him asking some questions or typing in some responses on that. So that's all I have, and turn it over to Chief Couse.
All right, thank you, Chief Davis. So we're going to continue this theme about communication and looking at this camera. We continue this theme about communication, and today you should leave this with something actionable that you can actually apply immediately on the fire ground and just in your day-to-day communications. I have a couple disclaimers to talk about first with this. This information is based off of something that Alan Brunacini wrote a number of years ago. Brunacini was fire chief in Phoenix back in the 90s and early 2000s. And he mentioned push-pull communication in a couple sentences, and then this has expounded over the years as I got promoted to figure out like how we can make that work and apply to the fire ground in a way that makes sense. And so this is a lot of conversations over the years with different chief officers. I know Chief Bailey was definitely involved in helping formulate these thoughts in a way that it makes sense for all of us. So if you've heard this before or it's probably because you've heard me talk about it or you've heard somebody that I've touched talk about it, because I don't really see it being discussed anywhere else. I do have some disclaimers though. So I don't speak for all the battalion chiefs. So the things that we talk about today, you got to go back to your battalion chief and see if that's how they want to run their incidents. By and large, I think you'll find that to be the case. But just to be sure. So we're talking about best practices only. These aren't rules and these aren't set in stone, nor is it necessarily something that the department encourages or wants. So I don't think some of this stuff is going to be controversial, but it will challenge your mindset of how we've always kind of run our fire grounds and the communications that we've heard over the years. I'm also by no means the expert. So you know, I think about Chief Davis, I think about Chief Villani, Chief Mann, Fitch, Blinkhorn. You want to hear some good fire grounds, you listen to that type of audio. And there's a theme that you'll start to see develop, and that's where this information kind of came from. So these are just some of our objectives. We're going to explain the differences between push-pull communication, what that means. The actionable part here is going to be for the unit officers, because especially those that are newer promoted, nobody wants to sound bad on the radio. Everybody wants to sound good because everybody's listening. And so we're going to explain what that means and how that works. We're going to discuss when it's appropriate to use a push versus pull, and when it's okay to deviate, overall fireground communication. And there's phases of an incident where this applies, and there's phases where the restrictions on being in that mode of communication relaxes. This is an audio. We're not going to play it, but this is an audio from, was it 2018? And so let me ask you this. This is for the chat, because this works better if it's more interactive. When you think of an incident and you think of that incident running the incident commander versus the incident commander running the incident, what are the differences? Like, what are some things that stand out of, the incident running the incident commander versus, the incident commander being in charge of it? Does that make sense? Some things and this is for the chat online, like what are some things that are the different, how can you tell when one is happening versus the other?
There's a minor delay. So
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
You all chime in there.
And I think it gets answered in the next question.
Proactive versus reactive.
Proactive versus reactive, right? And so when you think about communication, we just experienced this just now. So I'm talking, there's a little bit of a delay, and I gotta wait. I gotta wait for you guys to catch up, and then I'm catching up to you. And so that can happen on the fire ground, right? If you email me after this presentation, I can send you the link to this audio, and you can hear for the first 12 minutes or so, you can distinctly tell that the incident is running the incident commander. They are just trying to keep up with what is going on. And we're going to get into the why here in a second. At 21 minutes, it continues for a little bit, and then there's a sudden and abrupt change in the radio, the fireground communication on this incident. And you'll hear that change. It's very distinct. But like I said, we're not going to get into it right now. So the reason why this is so important, and Chief Villani hit on this in his presentation, in every NIOSH report, communication is always in there. There is something about the communication on the fire ground was a contributing factor. The other part of it is command. There's probably 90% of the time something about command, something command could have done better. So by our IRP, it talks about things that the incident commander must do to ensure effective command. So 1 is situational awareness, 2 is accountability, 3 is effective communication. The problem is we have not done a good job nationally, as a department, of explaining communication and how to do it in a way that's actionable so that it makes sense, so that I, as the incident commander, can be effective on the fire ground. So that there has to be a way to do that. All right, so was there any other answers that came in about how can you tell the difference between the fire ground running versus?
Operational tempo, the incident in runaway mode versus being in a controlled or moderated tempo. Incident commander simply saying okay to multiple different radio transmissions from various unit officers.
Great, yep. I like that tempo, because that hits my next one. So it's the incident commander's job to control that flow of information. If I go back here, fire grounds have a rhythm and a cadence. There's a rhythm on the radio, right? And you're listening and you're communicating, you do it, and then when somebody interjects, right? Somebody starts screaming on the radio, something happens, it disrupts that flow. If you go and you listen to, I say the vast majority of the Maydays, any Mayday audio that you can find, you will hear the rhythm and the cadence of that incident start to speed up before the Mayday happens, and things start happening faster. And then the incident commander has a difficult time keeping up with what's happening. Let me go back a slide. Unit officers are key in this fire ground communications. And like I said, we've done a terrible job of teaching the unit officers how to be effective on the fire ground. What we depend on is you listen to the radio over the years. The problem is, over the years, we've developed some pretty bad habits on the radio. And the more that we hear those bad habits, the more we think, oh, that's okay, because I just heard them say it the other day, so that must be the way that we do things. All right, so this is for the group, this is for the online. By policy, besides it being, the incident commander's responsibility, what is the main reason why we want good radio discipline? And we want clear, concise messages? There's a few reasons, but there's one really big one. So we're waiting. Again, we've got that communication lag. This is a good example of how that works.
Feedback we're getting is basically leaving room for emergencies, maydays.
That's correct. Yep, 100%. So the more concise we can be on the radio and the more disciplined we can be on the radio, the more we leave time for those mayday messages, because when we know when that mayday hits, that pace and tempo of the incident is going to increase greatly, right? And so it's going to become very, very difficult for the incident commander to keep everything in track and keep it organized. And we'll come back to that. So here's how that communication loop works. It's great with the people that are here, right? It's very easy because I can look directly at them. I can get nonverbal feedback. We can close that communication loop very quickly. If Chief Villani's in the car and I'm the second BC coming up, I'm going up to his car, walking past his window, doing this, and pointing to the building. He knows that I'm going to do a circle check around the building and I'm going to come back. That took place within a couple seconds. It was nonverbal and it was very clear and concise. He gave me the head nod. We closed that loop on that communication. When you're dealing with radio communication, it's different, right? So every time I get somebody from the field talking to me on the fire ground, I need to close that loop in communication. So I have to acknowledge that I received and understood what you just told me, and same vice versa. So because that has to happen and there can be delays, we start spreading out that time that's actually available to us on the talk group for that Mayday. So how do we create more time or get that time back? Well, so there's two ways. The best way to handle this, and again, this is best practices. I don't speak for the department, but I do expect my unit officers to do this, is there's a push and a pull of information. The push is when the information comes from you, the unit officer, to the incident commander without me asking. You're giving me information whether or not I ask for it. A pull of information is I'm reaching out to you and I'm asking you for the information that I need. So that's a push and a pull. There you go. When an incident is running, the incident commander, the vast majority of the time, the radio transmissions are coming in very quickly, and all they're doing is relaying messages. They're getting pushed information over and over and over again, and all I have a chance to do is to acknowledge the fact that you sent me a message. And then the incident starts running away from me because I didn't create time. I didn't create space for me to think my way through the rest of that incident and actually get ahead of it. So if I spend all my time managing messages, then I'm not really being effective as an incident commander. So pulling the information, it allows me to pull the information from you when I'm ready and when I want it, okay? So think about it in just those two terms, and then we'll start explaining when and why. All right, so if you're calling command, there's really three types of messages that are pertinent. So there's a routine type message, location changes, because again, part of the things that incident commander is responsible for is accountability, right? So I need to know where you are in the building. And then priority messages. Priority messages are pretty important. So this is what routine messages are. They're general updates on conditions or progress. They can be held until pulled by command. So I've talked to a lot of unit officers over the years that have gotten promoted, and I think typically a lot of guys think, hey, if I feed the incident commander information, I must be doing my job. I must be doing it well, right? And it can actually have the opposite effect if you're always feeding good, I want to say positive messages can probably wait, right? They don't need to, just because you did it and everything was good, doesn't mean you need to tell the battalion chief right away. It'd be like, you know, think about it from an administrative level on a day-to-day basis in the battalion. If the battalion chief, if you're doing a drill and you're telling the battalion chief, hey, we just did a drill today, it was great, and everybody's doing that, I expected to do that anyway, right? So that's good to know, but I'm not necessarily looking for that type of information. I guess in a better way to explain that would be like, I'm on the way to a box alarm and you're telling me that calling me to tell me that you did a drill today. I probably don't care, that's not the time for it. Same thing on the fire ground. While something may be good, it can probably wait because it's probably a routine message. Some incidents require inter-crew coordination, and that's okay, right? If Division 1 needs to talk to Division 2, that's okay. Those two supervisors can go direct with each other. You don't have to go through command for me to relay that message. And I don't see that a lot, but it's okay to do that. All right, so the other type of message that you're gonna give command are location changes. So if I'm a unit and I have to move from one floor to another, it'll have something like this, where engine 701 to command, and then it tells the type of message that you're about to tell me. And that helps the incident commander be able to prioritize when I get back to you, because there might be something else going on in the car. Priority messages. This is where if I don't acknowledge your message, something bad is about to happen, right? So if you send a priority message, you know, the other guy with the location change, he's waiting. You know, whoever's at the command car, right, chirping at the window, he's waiting, because I got to hear what you're about to say, because something bad could happen if I don't acknowledge that message. All right, so there are, by policy, there are things that are pushes that we expect to hear on the radio, that every incident commander expects to hear on the radio. 10 of those, there's 18 of them, 10 of them are required by just the first due engine. It sounds like a lot until you see the list and you see that it doesn't apply necessarily for every single incident. I'll show it to you. I'm not going to read them to you. If you go in the policy, you'll see it. It's in bold, it's in brackets, and it says exactly what we want to hear on the radio. Without anybody asking you for it, you're just telling us as it happens. So if you run a rural water supplies, the fill site, initial on scene report, the 360, it's things like that that we expect to hear. Any dangers, these are like priority messages, unexpected hazards, hoarding, holes in the floor, etc. The other 8 come from your third due engines, your fifth due engines, third due truck, EMS unit. And so these are the things, again, we expect to hear on the radio. But after we've made assignments, say I've given you, on the garden apartment, the first floor, I need you to search the 4 apartments down there. Maybe we've got a fire on the 3rd floor. I don't need to know every single apartment that you search as you search it, right, if it's good news. If they're negative, I'm expecting it to be negative. Because we're still in the stages of this incident where things are expanding, and so those good messages can wait. All right, so let's say you're doing your thing, command calls you and says that, hey, I need an update, you know, engine 723, give me an update. Let me ask you this. How often do you hear the LCAN format on the fire ground? Countywide. Would you say that we're good at it, bad at it, need some work? I know that there's a delay. Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
Only response.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. So there was a period of time when I was in Battalion 2 where I would, you know, maybe once, twice a year for that month when we came into work, if you called me, email me, text me, it had to be in an LCAN format, and I did the same thing back to them, just to get us in the habit of trying to remember to stay in that format. It really is effective, a very effective, concise way to communicate a lot of information in a short period of time. And it also, what really makes it good is if I'm sitting there waiting to get some radio time and I'm hearing another unit officer give an LCAN, I know that they're not done with that message until they get to the needs part and they say, I have no further needs, or whatever the case may be. If he's given an LCAN and he's under conditions, stops to take a breath, and then I interject myself, it's no different than if I'm sitting here talking with Chief Villani and then Chief Ogren in the middle just walks up into the middle of us and inserts himself, and it's like, you're sitting here. So. Hey, that's fine. What he said might be relevant. It's not a priority message. It wasn't, and he just inserted, and you hear that on the fire ground a lot. And so you need to be cognizant of that. Well, if we're saying things in an LCAN format, we know when there's a natural break in the conversation, and then a new one can begin. All right, so this one took me a long time to work out, because there are types of incidents and times in incidents where being in a push-pull makes the most sense, and there's a time where you don't necessarily need to be in that push-pull, right? So it took a little while to figure that out. But basically, there's three phases of the incident, if you will. So when we're dispatched until we're arriving, we're still escalating, right? And then maybe a check on the scene, hey, we got working fire. We're still escalating, right? We're still in that escalation phase because we don't have a handle on what's going on. The second is when maybe, hey, fire's knocked, occupants are accounted for, whatever it may be. It's a distinct feel when we shift from the incident still escalating, and I'm thinking about where we're going to be in 30 minutes and maybe we need a second alarm, versus, okay, the incident, it's not better, but we're now in a position where we're stable, right? And then the third is everything's better, we're starting to de-escalate. So the time when we're really in that push-pull is going to be the incident is escalating, right? So if the incident is escalating, what I don't want to hear on the radio is an EMS unit asking me where they should set up, rehab. I don't want to hear the rig company asking me where to set up. I want them to know where to set up. I want them to tell me where they're going to set up. If we have a problem with that, we'll change it. We'll make adjustments. But now you're asking me to solve a problem that we asked you to solve, and now that's taken me out of the game for the rest of the incident, and I got to fix your problem. So the times that we're using this push-pull and we're in this mode is when the incident is still escalating and we're heading into that stabilization of the incident, right? Once we're here, we're into, salvage and overhaul stage and checking for extension, so that the incident is de-escalating at that point. All right, so here's going to be the short version. Bad news needs to be pushed. If you have bad news to share, command needs to know that right away. If it's good news, it can wait. The exception is if the good news is going to move the incident to the stabilizing phase. So if we're in this escalating phase of the incident and your push is, hey, we got the fire knocked, or hey, we just found the person that was missing, that pushes us from, we're ramping up operations to, okay, now we can just kind of maintain it where we are. So if your push of information is going to move us into that stabilizing phase, that's a good push of information. And again, think about it from the incident commander's perspective. And I hear guys that get promoted or go through the command lab, and it's pretty eye-opening, because the things that you hear and see as a unit officer, you hear and see a lot more than when you're in that car, it seems. Because everybody's pushing this information to you. You got, not only on the radio, the guys coming up to your car window, your phone might be ringing, you ignore those, but there's all these factors coming in that are pulling your attention away. And so if we can control that flow of radio traffic, it really depends on the unit officers to be disciplined with the type of radio transmissions that they're making and when they're making it. And like I said before, you can think that I'm going to be good and I'm going to share everything I know with the incident commander because that's what I would want. And then you get into that situation where you're in the car and it's like, whoa, 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 slow down. This is too much information. I can't deal with it all at one time. I'm going to assume things are good until you tell me otherwise. And then when I'm ready for that information, I know the assignment that I gave you, I know where I assigned you, and I'll reach out and pull it from you when I'm ready. All right, so are there any questions about the push-pull? Because then I got a couple other nuanced things. It really won't take us long to talk about. Is there anything coming in online or no pushback? Okay. All right, so some extras. Call these disconnects. And this happens if you've ever ridden in a command vehicle or been a unit officer, you've experienced this. And that is where the information, your experience, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you've been told, something's not working. Something doesn't make sense. And so like I'm looking at a building and you're telling me that the fire's knocked and I see fire blowing out, the back window, that's a disconnect. I got to address that. I have to sort that out till I can figure out like why what you're telling me doesn't match what I'm seeing. This happens all the time in the vehicle, and it could be very mundane type things. It can be something as simple as maybe the unit officer's not giving us the information that we need, right, or that we want to hear. And so you're going to get questions back. And I know unit officers sometimes get frustrated with us because sometimes we do have a lot of questions and we ask the same ones over and over. There could be a couple reasons for that. One, we can maybe not trust what you're telling us. Or two, most likely, is there's a disconnect for us between what we've been told, what we're seeing, and what you're telling me, and we're trying to sort that out. So if you run into that, just be patient with us. Because that happens, and it happens a lot. And the faster the incident is flowing, the faster it is escalating, the more disconnects you have to sort through them. Because if you don't, it can lead to a mayday. It'll start speeding up the communication on the fire ground, and it speeds up to a point where it runs away from you, and then you end up at a mayday point. All right, this one's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And if you've ever worked with me, you know that. So handle your problems. So what does that mean? Well, if you're the second engine, by policy, it has been defined that your problem is to ensure and expand upon the first due's water supply. End of story. I don't care that you came in the wrong way. I don't care that they laid out from an unexpected place. It is still your problem to solve that problem. And once you put it back on the incident commander, all those other things that are coming in to the command post, now we have to sort it out, and now I have to fix your problem, which is going to be a problem for you and me later. So, and it's the same thing as when you've been assigned a division. If you've been assigned a division, you own all the problems on that floor. If you need more resources, I'll get you more resources. But you come across a person, you've got holes on the floor, that's your problem to fix. I need to know about it, right? But you've been assigned that division, handle that problem. This I hear a lot too is be confident on the radio. And it kind of ties into this. So if I'm asking, or any other incident commander's asking you about extension, the wishy-washy words do not instill confidence. you're going to get a lot more follow-up questions from it, and you're going to get frustrated with us. So if I'm asking you, hey, Division 2, Command of Division 2, need an LCAN, and you're like, I think we got it. Okay, well, keep looking until you're sure. That'll be my response. I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer. Hey, Chief, I don't know. We're still working on it. I'll get back to you in a minute. Great. That tells me a few things, that you're aware of the problem, you're actively working on it, and you're going to let me know when you get the problem solved. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind as you're on the radio. And, you know, like I said, we hear things on the radio all the time, and you can make those determinations of whether or not you feel like it's appropriate or not. And I guarantee you, once you go back and listen to another fire, you know, tonight, tomorrow, next week, whenever it is, and you start actively listening to that fire ground in a push-pull world, you'll be able to clearly tell if there's enough room for the Mayday in that call when it's being run. It'll be very clear from the rhythm, and if you're a unit officer, hear that rhythm and fall into it, and just, you know, dance along with that same cadence. When you insert and inject yourself into the middle of it, trying to be helpful, that's not going to be helpful to anybody. So I think that's it. I'm done with it. Unless there's questions or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward information. I don't know if Chief Villani, if you have anything with some of these extras that you've come across.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. That I don't know. When I was at 16, we ran a fire in 18's area, middle of summer, front to back, side to side. The thing was really on fire, and they did a hell of a job knocking it. And Chief Davis sent me in, hey, listen, let me know what else do we need to do in there. And I came out wishy-washy because really I should have told him we didn't need to do anything. But the fact was, I was like, he's asking me, he's probably looking for like an actionable response. So I gave him a wishy-washy response, and he gave me that look. You know that look that you get from your disappointed dad? He gave me that look, and I'm like, okay. So I learned that lesson on the fire ground as a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And it, you know, and it's huge. I don't know. You're right. I mean, you know, in the presentation, some of that technology stuff, like I said, I can't see the zeros and ones. My friends that can always help me out and are able to provide the answer when I say I don't know. Somebody's, you know, I don't know. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, and I think we lose sight of that sometimes. So if you say I don't know, it's not because it's you lack credibility. You know, you know what needs to be done. You got to work through some things first before you can give that confident answer. And I know where it comes from, right? We don't, like, if I'm asking you for extension and you're like, I think, and we go back for a rekindle later, you can say, well, I told you I thought it was. Obviously it wasn't. And so you don't want to be confident and then you're wrong later. And so I get that, right? But we don't operate in that world. We operate in a world where sometimes we need absolutes. And the job's not done until we have those absolutes. And so we got to work through it. But again, think about on the fire ground, next time you're communicating, if it's a good message, if it's good news, and the incident is still escalating, yeah, probably hold off and just wait until that information is pulled from you.
I'm on, correct? All right, so I'm going to try this. I like your idea. So first and foremost, thank you everybody for tuning in today. We told you it was a little longer, no big deal. I'm Captain Brady Miller coming to you from the PSTA. I'm excited to take this information back to my shift to better my ability to communicate, both written and orally. We are closing out today's session of COPDI, and I do want to touch on our JOT form, LCAN, right?
I love it.
Yeah? No?
was awesome.
I do like that. I sat back there and I struggled with it for a couple of minutes, but I got it. I do, John, or are we able to pull up the training academy? Can you go to, Chief, can you go to the training academy? I just want to review this jot form. Chief Gibson is trying to move away from signing in and out on the chat. He wants for COPDI, he wants us to use the jot form. So just go to quick links, go to PSTA, go to command competencies, and then right there is the jot form. You can even, if you want to, Chief, just pull it up. It's pretty easy. He is managing it using this form now. I'm not really sure. I guess he would probably compare the chat to the jot forms for a little while, but I know that he does want to move to this. So for all of the CCOs, this is what he wants you to use. Coming up, we do have another hybrid style program. I thought today worked out really good. We had a lot of people watching. We had a lot of interaction. And that's really kind of what we're after. We're after a couple of different things. One, the presentation, obviously, but then the people in the field. Everybody has a lot of good information, and when we can get that feedback, that's great. And we got that today through this hybrid episode. We've got it in the past through some boss talks. And I think as it stands right now, I was talking to Chief Davis, we're going to kind of continue this format. So our next, it'll be a hybrid boss talk / from the command post from a fire here in Gaithersburg. We're kind of setting that up now. We don't really think we're going to get it accomplished until early August, honestly. There's a lot of stuff going on in July, a lot of vacations, a lot of moving parts, so it probably won't be until August. And that's all I have for today. Again, thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe.